Republican lawmakers are jumping to Donald Trump's defense after he announced yesterday that he's the target of a federal probe into efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Several members of the House spoke out in favor of Trump yesterday, saying the latest move by the Department of Justice is an attempt by President Biden to undermine his top political opponent. Now, none of the lawmakers actually addressed Trump's actions surrounding the January 6th insurrection.
I guess under a Biden administration, Biden America, you'd expect this. If you noticed recently, President Trump went up in the polls and was actually surpassing President Biden for re-election. So what do they do now? Weaponize government to go after their number one opponent. It's time and time again. I think the American public is tired of this. They want to see equal justice, and the idea that they utilize this to go after those who politically disagree with them is wrong.
Another example of Joe Biden's weaponized Department of Justice targeting his top political opponent, Donald Trump.
It's absolute. Yeah, that's my reaction. This is the only way that the Democrats have to beat President Trump, is to arrest him, smear him, charge him with ridiculous charges, all in a cover-up of Joe Biden's crimes, Hunter Biden's crimes. It's unbelievable.
Of course, there's little to no evidence about any of those charges, but predictable talking points all the same. Joining us now, congressional investigations reporter for The Washington Post, our friend Jackie Alemany. She is an MSNBC contributor. We're very glad that she's with us this morning. So, Jackie, let's talk about that. That is the talking point. It has been that way since the Mar-a-Lago documents case, and even more so now. The Republicans saying this is the DOJ being weaponized to defeat Donald Trump. Walk us through the strategy and the risks to what the GOP is doing there.
Yeah, and John, we can't forget that Republicans have quite a bit of practice even prior to the first indictment when Trump was indicted earlier this year in New York regarding hush money payments to a porn star. But even going back to his two impeachments, Republicans have gotten down their lines in terms of walking around the actual charges and being able to sort of skirt the direct questions while continuing to defend former President Trump. But look, to be clear, Republicans have really organized their entire investigative strategy around defending the former president. From the investigations into Hunter Biden, trying to puff up unsubstantiated claims, sort of muddy the waters as much as possible, trying to tie Joe Biden to, again, unsubstantiated conspiracy theories, to then trying to claim that government is weaponized, from the Department of Justice to the FBI to other federal agencies, and that these indictments are simply the latest example of that. We were told really from the beginning to look out for Republicans trying to essentially grease the wheels to prepare in advance for these indictments that they knew were most likely going to be coming down the pipeline.
So, Jackie, you've been covering the Jack Smith probe so very closely from the beginning. In some ways, what happened yesterday, not a surprise, but still historic, still sort of a momentous moment for this nation that a former president likely to face charges here trying to disrupt the very fabric of our democracy. So give us next steps here. What are you looking for? Do we anticipate the actual charge could come maybe even next week? How's this going to play out according to your latest reporting?
That's a really good question, John. It's something that we were asking and quizzing all of our sources about yesterday. Another big question we were also asking is who else has potentially received a target letter, or is Jack going to sort of go through these indictments piecemeal and stagger them out. But if you look at the numbers with regards to previous indictments that have landed with former President Trump, there was 1 to 2 weeks in between when the former president received a target letter and when he actually received that indictment, particularly in that Mar-a-Lago documents case, where there was around 10 days, I believe it was, between the two. We're not sure how much time there's going to be this time around. It really is also sort of dependent on just how firmed up Jack Smith's team of prosecutors think they have this case, and whether or not the former president agrees to maybe appear before the grand jury or seeks a meeting with Jack Smith himself. We know the last time around, the former president did not appear before the grand jury in the Mar-a-Lago documents probe, but that his lawyers did ultimately meet with the special counsel's team. But we are watching it very closely, and obviously the shoe could really drop at any moment.
And Jackie, we should note that as you've been speaking, there's quite the lightning storm behind you there. Real quick, last question. You know, for the documents case, even after charges were brought, Jack Smith's still interviewing people. Is there a sense here, and again, charges not brought yet, but seem imminent, but the investigation still ongoing? Is Smith still bringing people in to talk to?
Yes, that is exactly right. Everyone that we've spoken to yesterday believes that these are people who either are witnesses or lawyers representing some of these witnesses who are continuing to go before the grand jury. They have said that this investigation appears to be ongoing, and that seems to be in part due to just the huge scope of the investigation, how many people were actually involved in the scheme to overturn the results of the election. And, you know, again, as I said just a minute ago, there is this feeling that there are going to be others who are going to receive a target letter. We have a bit of reporting of other witnesses who have been told that they are most likely going to receive target letters. It's just a matter of how it's going to be staggered out now once former President Trump is potentially indicted, which all signs are pointing to that at the moment.
Potentially in the coming days. So much to keep track of. Congressional investigations reporter for the Washington Post, Jackie Alemany. We will speak to you again a little bit later on Morning Joe. Thank you for joining us here on Way Too Early. And up